right, Chad Hasty Show, Texas 19 debate, and we go back to wind power. And Jodey, the question that you'll answer is this: would you vote to continue wind farm subsidies?
Yes, I would. The production tax credit is the incentive to support the development of wind energy so that we can have an all-of-the-above energy plan for our country and to strengthen our national security. It's a matter of national security first, but it's also jobs out here in West Texas. Some 1,500 jobs and then some 250 to 300 million in economic impact. Excuse me. And so we do need to phase it out. We don't need that there forever. We need that there to allow time for the industry to develop more efficient wind turbines, for example, reducing the drag, making them more economical. We have to also develop better battery storage, which is a critical component of making wind energy sustainable. But this is wind energy is also an issue of leadership in our country at Texas Tech. I mean, what's really cool about West Texas is that we are the nation's leaders in food, fuel, and fiber. And it's not just fossil fuel, it's renewable wind energy. And Texas Tech has a center of excellence in wind energy research, education, and technology development that's second to no other in the country. And I'm honored to serve on that board. It's become quite it's like a national laboratory right here, and it's working in partnership with the private sector. We actually test wind turbine technology all around the country, actually around the world. And so I'm proud of what West Texas has done to contribute to an all-of-the-above energy strategy. I'm proud of the jobs that we create, and I'm proud of what Texas Tech is doing to lead the way there. So we do need to phase it out, let it stand on its own over time. I talk to the industry quite regularly, and they say, look, let's just not have this cliffhanger every year debate about production tax credits. Let's fix it at a 3-year horizon or whatever the time frame, and then let's phase it out completely. And so they're for that too. They just don't want to debate this every year. That really hurts the market and allowing investors to be able to take the risk and develop more of these wind farms.
Okay. Jodey, this question to you. 2016 has been the year of the outsider. If we've learned anything in the presidential race, that seems to be true, that voters prefer outsiders nationally. Jodey, you received campaign donations from former President George W. Bush, from Karl Rove, among many other citizens. Former Governor Rick Perry has endorsed you. And any other election year, voters may not see those as a bad thing. But in 2016, doesn't that tell voters that the insiders are for you and believe that you will become one of them?
I think it shows that folks who know something about leadership in this business stand with me and support me and believe that I'm the right guy to actually go to Washington and deliver results. I mean, the issue isn't, we're running to be a politician. We're running to be a congressman. And the question is, what have we done in our positions of leadership in the past? You want a politician who does what he says he's going to do. You want somebody who leads, who has experience leading, working with people, solving problems, and delivering conservative results. And that's why the leader of the most conservative state in the union and an example for how we can prosper as a country if we govern under the conservative principles in Rick Perry, that's a point of pride for me. George W. Bush is a strong commander-in-chief. He took the fight to the enemy. He called evil evil. He was a strong commander-in-chief at a time when we were fighting terrorism. We see that juxtaposed today to the current president, Barack Obama, who can't even say the word radical Islamic terrorist. And so to have George W. Bush support me after 10 years of working with him that's a great letter of recommendation, I'd say. So, no. And then you look at the grassroots guys. But let's not forget that 12 mayors throughout this district have stood with me. Big Spring, Sweetwater, Levelland, Littlefield, Plainview, the city of Abilene's mayor, Norm Archibald, all of these 12 mayors are standing with me saying, hey, this guy is going to be the guy that we can count on to go up there and do what he says he's going to do and strengthen our country with policies and legislation, fend off bad legislation, fight against overreach and unfunded mandates, and make sure West Texas is growing and prospering. So no, I don't back away from that. I embrace it because I've got a great track record. And what we need, Chad, is more of those folks who, like when I went to Washington, cut the federal budget of the agency that I worked at $80 million, reduce regulations, and pass reforms that strengthen the banking system. That's what we need more of. So no, I'm very proud of the folks who are standing with me, from Farm Bureau to President Bush to mayors across the region.
Mayor, I want to get your answer on this, because in your ads you talk about not sending Washington insiders to D.C. I named off the endorsements that Jodey has. Number one, do you think that shows that Jodey would be a Washington insider? Number two, for those that also in your ad you talk about how it's easy to talk, how slick ads. How can you assure people that you won't become one of those Washington insiders if elected?
Well, I think it's obvious. Jodey spent 8 years in Washington, and then he spent time with the FDIC, and then his failure with the rebuilding of Katrina. After Katrina, he has been a lifelong bureaucrat for the vast majority of his adult life. He's been a part of the problem. I think the voters across the U.S. are absolutely fed up with business as usual in D.C. Now, Jodey worked for some good men, but he can't take credit for their successes, and he continually tries to. He talks about passing legislation. He's never held an elected position to where he's ever had to vote on legislation. Yes, he's lobbied. He's spent tens of thousands of dollars at Texas Tech flying to Washington and whining and dining and staying in five-star hotels and spending taxpayers' funds. But that doesn't make you a leader. I think you've got to look at 30% of his donations come from outside of this district. We now have a dark money super PAC. Nobody knows who's behind them. They call themselves Texans for Integrity, running negative ads against me. But they're neither. They're not Texans. They're based in Ohio. And they have no integrity because their ad is manipulating the facts and just absolutely spreading bad information. So I think people are fed up. I think they're fed up with business as usual. I think you can go back and look at my 25-year track record serving on school boards and as the mayor of Lubbock for the last 4 years. They've picked out 2 votes that they disagree with me with, of about 4,000 votes I've made as the mayor of Lubbock. And they're giving bad information on both of those 2 votes. So I think the voters see through all of this posturing and pandering and are really fed up to the point that they don't want any more lifetime career politicians going to D.C.
Jodey, I'm sure you want to respond.
I do, because what the voters don't want is somebody that campaigns as a conservative to lower taxes, to lower debt, and lower spending. And then, as the mayor did when he ran for his office, he is the only elected official in this race, although he's called me a career politician. He's the only politician, elected politician, and he ran on those promises, and he didn't fulfill them. He's voted to increase taxes, spending has gone up, and the debt is up, according to the website, the city website. I brought this here. This is straight from the city's website. You can look at it yourself. I won't spend too much time other than saying the debt was, and everybody that ran for mayor and those who ran in the city council race have talked about the out-of-control debt of this city. And so did the mayor when he ran. He said we need to cut it by 20%. That didn't happen. In fact, in 2012, it was $988 million. And then in 2015, it's $1.012 billion. So that's off the city website. I'll give this to you. You can verify that. But what they don't want is more politicians making empty promises. And so I'm, again, proud of my record. He mentioned the FDIC. He's been running ads about how at the FDIC I caused or I mismanaged some bank failure and caused the housing collapse. I've got and he cites the Wall Street Journal article. I've got the article right here. The FDIC, first of all, that bank that he references was regulated by another regulator, the Office of Thrift Supervision, not the FDIC. The FDIC's mission is to resolve failed banks. But by the time the FDIC was resolving this failed bank, and when it did, was June of 2001. I was still an advisor in the White House. I hadn't even been to the FDIC. So it's really irrelevant, but we keep running these ads because it's a distraction from his record as mayor. And if you look at all the ads that he's run, he hasn't run any ads that talk about his record. He's just talking about and distorting facts about the record of other candidates, namely me. So, again, I do think this election should be about a record and track record, not on just talking points.
Mayor, I do want to get to you. Well, we got to take the break. Got to pay the bills. So when we pay the bills, when we come back, I'm going to give you time to respond to that and give out the information you want to give out. We'll be right back. Chad Hasty Show, Texas 19 debate. We continue on with the Texas 19 debate, and in the last exchange that we had, we're having some accusations that are going back and forth. And Jodey, I want to follow up, and Mayor, I'm going to give you a chance to respond. But this kind of dovetails into, I think, what your response is going to be. Jodey, last night, or I think it was yesterday, you posted on your Facebook page that regarding the election, last night was a referendum against the out-of-control debt and reckless spending that occurred. As a result of Glen Robertson's failed leadership, Lubbock voters clearly want a new direction for our city so we can begin recovering from the years of increasing taxes and unsustainable debt created by Glen Robertson. Mayor, how do you respond?
Well, it's a campaign in panic. They've seen the polling. They know they're in trouble. So the response is going to the attack with false and misleading information. 2 tax increases while I've been mayor. One was actually a net decrease. The first tax, and I actually voted for that one because the voters had voted in 2009 in a bond election. Those bonds were sold. Voters had approved that tax increase. We raised the tax rate less than the voters approved. So it was actually a net tax decrease over what the voters approved. Jodey doesn't bring that out in his ads, number one, because he doesn't know it because he's never been involved. The second one was a negotiation. We had 2 council members that wanted to go up by almost 8% on the property tax rate, and this was 2 years ago. Council was split, and we're not like the federal government. We legally cannot run a deficit. We have to, by law, have a balanced budget. Jeff Griffith, not me, but Jeff Griffith led the effort for a compromise solution and cut that proposed tax rate increase in half over what 2 council members, and they had gained a 3rd member, really wanted to do. So that was a win for the taxpayers. When he talks about the debt of the city of Lubbock, when I took office, if you'll go to the CAFRs, and you can pull a lot of stuff off the website, but go to the comprehensive annual financial report. It's the audited stuff. Jodey, I'm glad you're writing it down because you need to read that thing, or you need to hire somebody to read it for you. Because debt when I was elected was $1.16 billion. It increased 119% the 7 years previous to me being elected. We've held it virtually flat, and we were going to reduce that debt by $90 million this year. But council voted 6-1, with me being the only one in opposition, to issue another $114 million in debt. I voted against that, so it's a little disingenuous for Jodey to attack me. What he fails to mention is at the same time that we were having the battle over that last tax increase, is that he was helping lead the effort to lobby the state legislature for a 12% increase in local sales tax. He came on your show and lied about it and said he wasn't a part of that group. 10 days later, he's in a forum, and he changes his story and tells the truth, said, I'm proud to be a part of that effort. Jodey has misinterpreted. He is misrepresenting the facts at the FDIC. He worked there from 2001, 2005. The facts are there, Wall Street Journal, Forbes. He doesn't talk about his disaster failure in New Orleans after Katrina. We need to get back to issues. These childish attacks hiding behind the skirts of a dark money super PAC because you don't have the courage to stand up and tell the truth yourself. We've got to get past that and start talking about Social Security, veterans, the debt, the things that really matter in this election. We
have one more break that we have to take. I'm going to give you time, Jodey, if you do want to respond to any of that when we come back. Okay. Chad Hasty Show, Texas 19 debate. Texas 19 debate here on the Chad Hasty Show. Jodey, I want you to respond to what Mayor Robertson had to say, but I want to read just two things to you from the Wall Street Journal report that the mayor brought up. It says this. It turns out that the U.S. government itself was one of the lenders giving out high-interest subprime mortgages, some of them predatory according to government documents filed in federal court. Rather than, and I'm going through this quickly, rather than immediately shuttering or selling Superior as it normally does with failed banks, the FDIC continued to run the bank's subprime mortgage business for months as it looked for a buyer.
Yeah, we could spend the next 45 minutes talking about this, or we could just get to the most important fact in that article, Chad, and that is that I wasn't at the FDIC. I wasn't there during FDR's New Deal or the Great Society, or I don't know how far we're going to go back, but I wasn't at the FDIC. So
when did you get there?
6 months later.
Okay.
And at that time they stopped doing that. At the time I took office there as chief of staff, and then a few months later they'd sold the whole thing. So I mean I'm not gonna go and answer questions about an agency or actions from people that I had nothing to do with. So. But again, he keeps running those ads and hoping that it'll stick, but they're ridiculous and they're false and they're misleading.
Many more issues to get into in the next hour. We have 30 more minutes left of this debate. We'll be right back.